We're starting chapter 7. So we're going to be getting back to more solving equations that have variables in them and number terms, like terms. We're going to be talking more about coefficients again and things like that, okay? So let's review first. When you're solving an equation, the goal is always to get the variable by itself on one side of the equation, and then figure out what the variable equals on the other side. Okay? So you've got two sides on an equation, and those two sides, you have to remember, those two sides aren't equal. They're balanced in an equation. So if you do something to one side, in order for it to stay balanced, you have to do the same thing to the other side. Right. Whatever you do on one side, you have to do the other side. Okay? So, the first thing you'll always do when solving an equation is look for like terms to add together. If you have two x's and then there's other x terms over here, you should combine those. Or if you have a number on the left side and another number on the left side, you should add them together. Anytime there's like terms, you should combine them first. You should add them. Now, you might add the negative if it's a minus. If there's a minus sign in there, you have to deal with that. We'll get into more of that later on in the chapter. For now, we have on the left side of the equation an x term, which is, that means this term here means two x's, and a number, and on the right side is just the number. 2x plus 1 equals 5, right? So, then we have to add the opposite of the number. We have to get rid of this 1 on this side in order to get the x term by itself. So you have to add the opposite of it. Add negative 1. Then add negative 1 on the right side. So we're adding the same thing to both sides. So then, we draw this line to show the equal sign. We're going to add down, bring down the 2x. 2x plus 0 equals 4. That means 2x equals 4. Then, you can get the x term by itself. Either divide by the coefficient. If it's a whole number or a decimal, you can divide. But what you're doing is multiplying by its reciprocal. Okay? Multiplying by 1/2 and dividing by 2 is the same thing. We're just going to divide by 2 because it's easier to show. So, divide both sides by 2, cross out these reciprocals, and we leave 1x, and divide, and x equals 2. Okay? So, a little review there in a nutshell. Everybody understand how to do this kind of problem? Good. Let's move on to the next type. Okay? And this is going to be number 4 from your assignment. So you might as well copy this one. Number 4 from your assignment, which is page 354. And in this one, we start with a minus sign here. On the left side is 2d minus 8. So we have to change this to plus negative in order to see that this is a negative 8. Otherwise, we might put minus 8 here. What if you put minus 8? If you see minus 8, and you read that as a positive 8, then you might subtract 8 from each side. Well, what would you get if you put minus 8 there? If you added down, what would you end up with right here? Nikki? Negative 16. That doesn't help us solve this. Then we have 2d minus 16 equals negative 18. That doesn't help us solve. Right? We have to get rid of the negative 8. Okay? So we have to add 8 to both sides. Alright? And this is helpful, yet if you need to draw this line in order to separate the two sides, you can still do that. So then 2d plus 0 equals -2. That means 2d equals -2. And you can divide both sides by 2. Cross out the reciprocals. Always cross out the reciprocals. Okay? So that leaves us with d equals -1. Now, you're going to be asked to check the solution. How would you check the solution? Joey?
2 times -1 plus -8 equals -10.
Right. You would put the -1 into the equation. And we're going to put that over here. You just write 2 times -1 plus -8 equals -10. Then you can check it. -2 plus -8 equals -10. It is true. So write true next to it. Okay? If it's false, you can write false, but you have to redo it. You can't just write false. Right? Why? Because you got the wrong solution then. If it's false, you have to find the right solution. Right? Now, here's one more type of problem. This one's a little bit different. Can you see what's different about it? You see anything that's different?
You're subtracting.
Yeah, you're subtracting the variable. Okay? Or you have a negative coefficient here. This is number 12 from your assignment. So, when we put the plus sign here, this is a -k. But really what it is a -1k. So if you could put a -1 right here, what is our coefficient in this? What is the coefficient of k? Lydia?
-1.
-1. That's the number in front of the variable. Okay? Just wrote it up there. -1. So then you have to get rid of 75. Oops, add 75. Okay? Then what? You can bring this down to 0 plus 1k. What would you bring down? Noah? What would you bring down here?
-1. Or
Yeah, -1k. You bring down this whole variable term. So 0 plus -1k is -20, because -95 plus 75 is -20. That means -1k equals -20. How do you get rid of a -1k? What's the reciprocal of -1? It's kind of a trick question, but it's not really. What's the reciprocal of -1? Negative. -1. -1 times -1 is 1. -1 times -1. So the reciprocal of -1 is -1. So we multiply both sides by -1. Whenever you have a -1k or negative in front of a variable, you just multiply both sides by -1 right at the end. Okay? Now that makes sense because -75 plus -20, if 20 goes right here, this would be -1 times 20, right? So -20. -75 plus -20 is -95. Look, negative 75 plus negative, there's that negative sign, and then we put 20 in. Equals negative 95. That's true. Okay? Any questions about that type? All right. This one is from number 9, I think it is. Number 6 in your assignment. What does this one have? How does this one look a little different? What does this one have that the others didn't have? A fraction. So when working with fractions, you'll have to multiply both sides by the reciprocal to solve it. Remember that? Remember how to do that? So, first, add the negative 2 to both sides. So x over 3 plus 0 equals negative 2. With me so far? So x over 3 equals negative 2. And multiply both sides by what? How would we cross out the 3 on the bottom? Henry?
Times it by the reciprocal.
Right. Times it by 3 over 1. We have a 3 on the top in the numerator, 3 in the denominator, so we can cross out those 3's. Multiply by 3 on this side. And that proves x is negative 6. To check it, x is negative 6. So we put negative 6 in place of x. 3 plus 2 equals 0. Well, negative 6 over 3 is negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. That's true. Okay? Those are the 3 types of equations you're going to review today. Oops. So, isolate the variable, add the opposite to each side, multiply by the reciprocal, and you've got it.